Welcome to another episode of Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio. No, Andrew and I aren't playing Yahtzee, but we could. Today's episode is about role-playing games, tabletop games, video games. The notion of becoming someone else through a game and how it relates to martial arts. This is going to be a lot of fun. And those of you out there who fly your nerd flag proudly, you are definitely going to enjoy this. And even those of you who don't, I think you'll still dig this one. You'll probably learn something. In fact, the people who are not so inclined, you're the ones that are going to learn the most from this episode. So stick around. If you're new to what we do, well, you've picked an interesting one to come in on. Welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, the number one ranked traditional martial arts podcast in the world. My name's Jeremy Lesniak, joined by my good friend, co-host Andrew Adams. Andrew, welcome to the show
Oh,
again.
so great to be here, as always.
It is. It is. Thank you, my friend. And to all of you out there, thank you for spending some time with us. If you are new, please visit whistlekickmartialartsradio.com for every episode we've ever done, including transcripts, video versions, audio versions, links, photos, videos, all the good stuff that goes along with this and every other episode we do. Join the email list to have each new episode sent right to you. Minimal effort. And you can get behind the scenes stuff and a free book and all kinds of other good stuff when you do that. And it is free, and we're not going to harass you. And we're only going to talk to you about martial arts radio. That's why we're doing it this way. Now, if you want to go even deeper into the Whistleverse, which is what I sort of call it, but I don't love that name, the Whistle Kick verse, it's too many syllables, Whistleverse, you can go to whistlekick.com and you can see all the events that we do. Martial Summit, All In Weekend, Free Training Day, and so forth. You can see all the products that we make, the apparel, the training equipment, all that good stuff. You can see the training programs. You can get connected with the books, all the things that we do, because there's so much that we do at Whistle Kick to help you, the traditional martial artists of the world, connect, educate, and train. Thanks for being here. And Andrew, let's jump in.
Yeah,
We
let's do it.
opened we opened the show with you shaking and rolling dice,
Hmm.
because I don't think there's anything more iconic to at least the tabletop role playing
Yep.
world than polyhedral. There's a word for you.
Ooh.
Polyhedral dice.
Yeah, I would agree. And there are obviously dice have been around for hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
Thousands of
Um,
years.
but the dice that people are most commonly familiar with are the standard six-sided dice. But those that are into tabletop role playing games know that there are lots of different sided dice. Here's a
That's a
four-sided
four-sided.
die, right? They're 20-sided. They
There's a
actually
20.
make they actually make 100-sided dice.
They do. And Jordan, we're still waiting on these 7.5 sided die.
Yes.
That's a slight inside joke. Those of you who are at All In Weekend will understand that one. Why do we use dice? Why do we bring dice into these things?
I mean, it gives you a level of chance.
Yeah. Without chance, you can't have consequence that feels like it matters, right? Without chance, it's just someone telling you you died,
Hmm. Hmm.
you lost, you
Yep.
won. I mean,
Yep. Chance and
where's
randomness. Yeah.
there isn't a lot of fun there. And in fact, in the literary world, there are plenty of examples of, and even TV and movies, where even in guaranteed success without the element of chance, things become miserable.
Mm.
I just rewatched The Good Place,
Oh, great show.
and there's a bit of that. And yes, there's a little bit of a spoiler there, but you find out pretty early on, so I don't feel like I've given away anything. And it's a fantastic show. We need chance, right? And I think that for though I've never heard it said this way, and I've never thought of it this way until right now, that might be part of people's aversion to forms. The folks who are averse to forms and prefer sparring in an intense environment. there is an element of chance. There's an element of the unknown that is strongly threaded through that you don't have in forms. And I, this is a a rapidly developing new theory that I just came up with. Can you tell I just folded my arms because
Yep.
I'm tightening up thinking about it. As a kid, I loved forms, probably because they were predictable,
Hmm.
because I needed that element of control in my life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. Now I'm folding my arms thinking about it. That's yeah, that's interesting. Because you're right. There's nothing more random than sparring, right? You don't know what your
Especially
partner's going to
someone
do.
new.
Yeah, exactly. You certainly don't know what what the person you're sparring is going to
Yeah.
do. You can't tell me how you're going to react to whatever they do because you don't know yet, right? And forms is very predictable. You were taught to do it this way, and this is the way you do it. That's interesting. Yeah, yeah,
We'll have to do a follow-up episode on that.
yeah.
That's kind of fun.
I like it.
So we bring in dice because we need to bring in chance because chance is what makes things exciting because it gives us some differentiation in the result.
Mm-hmm.
The greater the consequence, both good and bad, the more exciting the action,
Yep, yep.
right? There's a reason that there are a bunch of people who prefer live action role-playing games versus tabletop role-playing games because the combat, and this is probably where we're going to start talking about martial arts and role-playing and how they connect. For those of you who are unaware, there are quite a few people out there who take what a lot of people do with dice and they bring it out into the real world and they act it out.
Mm-hmm.
And there are entire combat systems. And the very first one, two, the first two, three, we did it a couple times at Free Training Day Northeast. We brought in some folks who did that live action role playing. We had this massive group combat, and it wasn't random because of the dice. It was random because it was utter chaos and people moving in ways that were unpredictable, much like sparring.
Yep. And I did it for years, years and years.
Mm.
I was involved in martial arts first and heard of and played tabletop role playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, and things like that, and found out that I could do this in real life. And I for years, I mean, there's 52 weekends a year. I probably went to minimum 35 events a year.
Whoa. I didn't
Yeah.
realize you were that big into it. That's
Yep.
awesome.
And the a big aspect that drew me to it was martial arts. Now I was a martial artist, but this is a chance for me to actually do combat, sword fighting combat, which I loved doing in my tabletop games. And it was a chance for me to do it in real life. Obviously, I couldn't punch or
Not with
kick.
live blades. You're not killing
No,
people,
no, they were foam
but
swords.
there's plenty of carryover.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it was for probably 10 years, it was the thing I was into.
Mm, that's really cool. And I think that this is where I look at role-playing games, whether it's tabletop, live action, video game, computer generated. It almost doesn't matter. There are things I can pull back out. I don't know if these are going to air in the order that we're recording them, but we just a few minutes ago recorded an episode on the martial arts of mowing your lawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go into things with the right mindset, you can pull anything back to your martial arts, right? One of my favorite things to do is to observe how other people are acting and predict their next action.
Mm.
It's something we all, if you drive a car, you do this whether you realize it or not, because you have to, otherwise you die, right?
Yep, yep,
And so I will really make it even if I'm a passenger, I try to predict, especially if I'm a passenger, I try to predict how are people going to move. If I'm sitting in a coffee shop, I can really kind of focus in and I'll listen to people's conversations, not to spy on them, but to kind of predict or I see people moving in certain ways because the better I get at that predictive stuff, the better I can bring that out into a
Mhm.
self-defense context.
Yep, yep, and it's all about choosing what we're gonna do,
Hmm.
which I think I hadn't thought of this until just now, but one of the earliest versions of this, playing a character, creating a persona, whatever, was choose your own adventure books. You're reading a book and it says, hey, if you want the character to do this, go to this page. If you want the character to do this, go to this other page. And it was the first chance as a young child reading where I got some say into what happened.
Yeah.
And I never put that together until just now when we started recording.
So, fun fact, the publisher for the Choose Your Own Adventure books is about 15 miles that way
Oh, nice.
in it's Waitsfield or Warren, Vermont. I'm pretty sure it's Warren. My apologies for missing it. But I, uh, at my 11th, 12th birthday, received a book kind of based on the Choose Your Own Adventure books that had a combat system in it. It was the Lone Wolf books. I don't know if you've ever seen these.
I
Yes,
have. I could go downstairs and get them. I have
I
them.
have nearly a complete set. I'm missing a couple. And for those of you who don't know, you very well could have rolled a die, but what they had on the back page was a random set of numbers. And the idea was you were supposed to, you know, unfamiliarize yourself with where they were and close your eyes and use a pencil and pick a number so you could
Mhm.
play on the go. And it wasn't anything close to actual combat. I'm not pretending that, but it was a small step in that direction.
Yep. Yep. And so there's the first opportunity where personally I had to do that, and then the next was playing tabletop or video, but for me it was tabletop
Yeah.
role playing games. Um, and what I found interesting was, again, I was already involved in martial arts. Then I started playing these tabletop games. The largest that everyone knows, obviously, is Dungeons and Dragons. Back then, it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There's AD&D, but there are hundreds of different tabletop role playing games.
Yeah.
GURPS, which is the generic universal role playing system. Rollmaster is another one that I really got into, but there are just tons of them. And what I found interesting was they being the game manufacturers recognized that people there are hundreds and thousands of millions of kids playing our game, and
Mm.
there is a subset of them that are involved in martial arts. Let's cater our part of our game to them. And so they would always come out with a separate compendium, a separate book. You can play their game, but if you buy this book as well, now your character can do these martial things.
Yeah. I think a lot of that comes from this idea that, we need consequences. And one of the most obvious ways for two people or two characters to engage in conflict is through combat,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's fairly primal. We understand, we work hard in day-to-day life to not, fight each other, but it is unfortunately still an inevitability. It still happens. You don't have to grab too large of a sample of people to talk to someone that's experienced violence even recently. And
Sure,
you know,
sure.
statistically we're getting better at that, but it still happens. And I think that as we talked about before, chance and consequence being such an important aspect, what would role-playing games, even if combat's not the focus, even if we take a look at something like a Dungeons and Dragons versus, say, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I think you did you grab one of the books
I do
or the
actually.
book, the original book?
I
Yeah.
have the original Teenage
Oh,
Mutant
that's
Ninja
so cool.
Turtles and Other Strangeness
So those of you
role playing
who
game.
who never played that is a very combat-focused role-playing game versus something like D&D where the combat is an aspect of it. And depending on who your dungeon master is, you want to offer the disclaimer here.
So yes, so what I'm holding up is the official Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'm wondering if I can find the year that this was published. Should be
Mm,
right here in the front. Um, the year is 1985. So
yeah.
this is the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Oriental Adventures. Now, obviously, they would not name this book this
Right,
now, but
right.
back then that's what it was called. And this, you could play Dungeons and Dragons back then and say, oh, I'm going to be a samurai. But this book was the actual rules for playing a samurai.
It went deep, and that was kind of a hallmark there that you would go deep. Now, the other thing that I kind of want to bring into conversation here, um, because this is probably the first quote of mine that got, spread around the internet. Martial arts gives back exactly and only what you put in.
Hmm.
And the full quote, and it's weird to quote myself, but martial arts is one of those rare pursuits that gives back exactly and only what you put in. Most role-playing games are an attempt to get somewhere in that direction
Hmm.
that okay, if I do this, I understand these rules. Yes, there's an element of chance here. It's not a direct in and out in the same way martial arts is, but it is a much more cut and dry, leveling up, experience point, results, rewards, etc. process than the real world is. And I think that there's a large portion of society that really appreciates that. Statistically, it does tend to be younger men, and we don't need to get into the psychology of that. But when the world doesn't seem to make sense, in the same way that martial arts is a place that can bring a lot of us solace, for a lot of people, role-playing games are similar because there's enough risk to make it fun, but it's
Hmm.
not real risk.
Exactly.
You're not
Exactly.
going to die. You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to lose your job. People are not, you're not, well, you might lose some social standing playing art, role-playing games, depending on the social group that you're in. But fortunately that's changed. But I think that the Venn diagram, the overlap between people who are interested in martial arts and people who are at least open to role-playing games is considerable because the in versus out balance is so much closer than it is to other things.
Yep, yep. And for a lot of people, it became an escape. They got to be
Yeah,
someone else, right? And not have that fear of actually, like you said, actually dying.
right. And I think that, for a lot of us, when we train, whether it's conscious and intentional or not, we have a bit of that.
Mm.
If I'm having a good class, whether I'm training, eh, more so when I'm training than when I'm instructing. When I'm training and I'm having a good workout and I'm feeling strong and the material is clicking, whether I'm sparring or self-defense or grappling or rolling or sparring or forms, I feel like a better version of myself. I feel like I've put on a bit of a cape.
Hmm.
I'm superhero Jeremy. Maybe not superhero, hero Jeremy, right? And that's a really good feeling. I don't get to feel like that day to day very often. And I'm gonna guess you felt that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we have both seen the inverse happen, where someone
For sure.
starts training in martial arts because they've been playing role playing games and they want to be able to do the things that their character can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanna shout out because he's a good friend of ours and he's part of our team, Victor, who's been on the show almost as many times as Craig, right? Like they're
Yep.
fighting it out for third and fourth. Uh he's run several um instead of thinking about bringing martial arts out into role-playing games, he's more going the other direction. And
Yeah.
I think the one that he's running next month is fighting like a barbarian.
Mm.
So taking the idea of how would a prototypical barbarian from a role-playing game fight, and then how do we make that real?
Yep.
What are the actual implementations with the actual tools? And I think he's using an axe for this. I think it's like a 5-week course, and it's really cool. And um, his school, he and his wife are really onto something kind of cool there. And as an aside, if anybody out there does something similar, I'd love to hear from you about that because I want to pick your brain. I want to know more. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think the last one he did was thieves fighting like a thief, like a rogue type thing. Like
yeah,
there's definitely a lot there, and what I enjoy about all of these games is that, like I mentioned, they all came out with separate rules for doing that. The last book I have here is from the generic universal role playing system from it's called GURPS, and the book is titled Martial Arts Exotic Combat Systems from All Cultures.
Oh,
And
it says exotic. Got it. Okay. It's a little
um
blurry on my screen.
what was cool about this was it was the first time that I
I
saw.
didn't get him. I tried to get him.
I was ignoring you.
I know
Uh,
you were.
it was the first place where I saw African martial arts. They had African
What's
weapons
the
and
date on that
shields.
book?
The date on this, it's going to be really early, 1990.
Okay. So, we've had a number of guests on the show who have delved into Mama G being the most recent, delved
Yep.
into African martial arts, and she her story goes back to the 70s, but in the grand scheme of a certain flavor of martial arts, that's still really new. And
Hmm.
the fact that they had that incorporated, that's really cool.
So
They were ahead of the curve.
for me, as a martial artist, uh, this was like research material. Like,
Yeah.
what's the name of that weapon? Wow, I've never seen that before. That's cool. Oh,
Mm.
there's a shield that it's a shield and a sword at the same time. Like, wow, that
Yeah.
stuff like that was research for me.
There's one more thing that I want to say, and I think it kind of bookends the show. So before I go there, do you have anything else you wanted to bring in?
Um, no, I think we're good.
Okay. So there may be some folks out there who are watching or listening, and they're saying, okay, great, I've hung with you this far. I don't see how this applies to me. I don't want to get together with friends and roll dice. I don't, video games don't appeal to me. I prefer the real world to a manufactured world. Great, absolutely. I understand that. I appreciate that. You cannot be you and be the most effective self-defense practitioner in the moment that you need it. Because if you are you and you are not an inherently violent person, and I'm going to guess we have nobody out there in the audience that is an inherently violent person. Because if you are, you're probably not training. And
Hmm.
if you are training and you are inherently a violent person, you're probably not enjoying it. So you probably stop training. So you're probably not watching or listening to the show.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe we get some weirdo who writes in there like, I hate everyone and I stab people whenever I can. Fine. Okay. I don't believe you, but maybe that happens.
And if that's true, and you do write in, make sure you give us your full name and
Right.
address, phone number.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. All the evidence from all the people you've stabbed,
Yep, yep,
as well as the contact information for your local police jurisdiction.
yep.
Mm,
Otherwise, we're not going to believe you.
right. Also, stop stabbing people. If you play out the scenario, you have to go to a different place. You have to go to a bit of a dark place. And anybody who has really pushed the envelope on self-defense scenario training knows what I'm talking about. You can't approach that as you. You have to put on a different mask, costume, persona, whatever you want to think of it as. Maybe there's a reflection of who you are in that. And I'm not suggesting that this is at all bad. This is exactly what it needs to be. Because otherwise, how do you match up to someone who is trying to hurt you? Someone who is more inherently in that dark place, right? Warm, fuzzy people don't don't commit violence trivially, right? There's a very strong reason. So you've got to be able to find a way to step into that place. And role-playing games are not going to get you all the way there with comfort, but you can dip a toe in.
Yep,
If you let's Well, Jeremy, I'll just be able to do that whenever I want. If you can't sit in front of a group of people that you know, that you like, that are pretending to be someone else in a fun way, maybe over a drink or some snacks on a Friday night, you are mistaken as to how easily you can step into that dark place and be a completely different person that you've never been. Do I have faith that you're probably going to get there? Yes. But if you're training your physical skills and you continue to train your physical skills, there is benefit in training this ability to transition. Now, for me, that is my highest expression of forms. If anybody's ever watched me compete, I go to that dark place. And the better I can do that, my last competition a few weeks ago, I was not great. But the better I do, the longer it takes me to come out. It is generally 30 to 60 minutes for me to fully come back once I go there because it is that much of a transformation for me. And I didn't realize it as I was coming up through the competitive circuit that that's the skill I was practicing.
Yeah, I dig it. I get it.
So to all of you out there, it's okay to put down who you are from time to time. It's okay to think about a persona. And even if you're not going to actually go and roll dice or play games or bang foam hammers, swords with other people, I think there's some value in you coming up with an alter ego. And once in a while, training is that alter ego. You don't even have to tell anybody. You can show up to class one day and, today I'm Conan or whoever.
Why not? Why not?
Why not? Nobody has to know. The more comfortable you are with it, the easier you can flip it back and forth when you need it. Awesome. For any of you out there who have found value in bridging these two subjects, we want to hear from you. Andrew at whistlekick.com, Jeremy at whistlekick.com. You can comment any place we post these episodes, YouTube, Spotify, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. And if you love what we do, there's 3 things I want you to do. I want you to leave a review somewhere. I want you to subscribe. And I want you to join the Patreon. It starts at $5 a month. We give you extra stuff back, and we have big plans. We got to get another 15 people or so in there, 14, 15. I haven't checked the numbers today. And once we do, more great stuff coming to you for no extra charge. And actually, there are higher tiers. We could have, let's see, 15. So we could have one more person join at the $100 level, and that would do it too. So how much do you love us? Anything else before we roll out? Is that it?
No, I think we're good. I think until next time, train hard
Smile!
and hang on. hang on. Have a great day.
You got a natural 20.
Train hard, smile, and
Smile, have a great day.
The dice told you to have a great day.
That's the dice told you to have a great day.